Chapter 10. I am a Sin Archbishop representing Sloth, Betelgeuse Romani Conti. At your service. Betelgeuse said as he bowed to Naruto. Naruto was aware that he had witch miasma on him. The possibility that he was being confused with a witch cult member was pretty high, so quickly weighing his options he decided to play along, for now. Beating this guy was important and had to be done, but he had questions he wanted answers. A pleasure to meet you, great Sin Archbishop, sir. I see you were waiting for me. He said as he bowed to him in return. Of course. I always welcome everyone, beloved children, blessed with love. 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 The love from our beloved mistress. He said, almost shouting in glee at what he thought was a new member in their witch cult. Their beloved mistress. Obviously, Betelgeuse was talking about a witch, more specifically Satella. He must feel very close to her, seeing as he said word, love, an annoying amount of times, or maybe he was just annoyed that he was talking to a twisted villain. Who knows? Seeing as the very much, crazy Archbishop was very happy to talk about who he thought was Satella, Naruto decided to use the opportunity to acquire information. You're very close to the mistress. May I ask what's your relationship with her? The blonde asked with a false, eager smile. Love. With love. She's the most beautiful being, she believed in me. What she needs from me now is the ordeal. Betelgeuse yelled with love as he jumped in front of Naruto, who held himself back from punching him right there and then. With this ordeal, we must test her. To learn if this half-devil is a worthy vessel, if she is worthy to put our witch into her. Put the witch into a half-devil. Worthy vessel? Yes. If she is worthy, the witch will possess her. If not, she will discard her. If she proves a worthy vessel for the witch, then the witch will be reborn into this world on the coming fated day. Half-devil. Emilia. Naruto thought. I see. So, the witch cult's goal is to capture Emilia and bring her to a trial. Then, use some kind of ritual to summon Satella, and then she would possess Emilia to be reborn into this world because she's a half-elf. It seems some of his worries were true. This man needed to be put down immediately for everyone's sake. Naruto wouldn't allow this to happen to Emilia. Do you have the gospel? His voice stopped Naruto from his thought process as he looked at him. The gospel? He asked with a confused expression on his face. My brain trembles. He said, offended as he took out a book. Presentation of the gospel, proof of love. Proof. 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 Huh. My gospel has no account of you. Oh. I see. Give me a second. Naruto said as he began to search himself for the book. Aha. Finally. I found it. Betelgeuse gave him a big creepy smile while watching him pull out his gospel. He waited for the blonde boy to reveal the book to him, but got confused when instead he pulled something out from his pocket that clearly had no resemblance to the gospel. What is this? He asked as the blonde boy showed a middle finger to him. Fuck you. Naruto said as he manipulated the sand from his gourd and formed it into a fist to punch Betelgeuse in his face. If one had the ability to see in slow motion, or perceive really fast actions, one could see the first impacting into the face of the madman and force him to swallow some of his teeth. However, a normal person would only see the Archbishop get flung into a wall with his face looking like a bloody mess. The blonde shinobi activated the Sennin mode and prepared to fight the Sin Archbishop of Sloth, not willing to let the man pull any tricks on him. Naruto saw his enemy starts to get up, so he charged him. He threw a slash to Betelgeuse with his kunai, but the Archbishop's body slid away unnaturally before the blade could end his life. That wasn't a dodge. There was something that grabbed Betelgeuse's body and saved his life. Concentrating on his now heightened senses, Naruto could now see several hands completely made out of magic coming out of the man's back. They seemed like a camouflaged version of his chakra arms and seemed to work similarly, but since they were made out of energy, they were completely obvious to him now. Betelgeuse clenched his remaining teeth and glared at Naruto, who he no doubt saw as a traitor. Why? 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 He demanded to know as he bit his fingers. I wasn't with you to begin with, Betelgeuse. Naruto replied as he remained on the frog fighting stance. You didn't recognize and still revealed precious information to me, you're an idiot. Maybe, next time, check your eyes Databayo. In anger the man actually pierced his skin drawing blood, adding more to his already bloody face. Authority of Sloth, unseen hand. Betelgeuse yelled as he unleashed multiple shadow hands that flew toward the blonde boy. Naruto dodged the normally invisible hands, and the ones that came to close him were blocked by the sand. He slashed several hands with a kunai overflowing with wind chakra. The blonde quickly destroyed all of the unseen hand, and Betelgeuse was now unable to defend himself. He reached out his hand to command the sand move forward. Betelgeuse tried to evade, but it was too late. The sand caught his arm and he had no way of prying of him with no unseen hand. Naruto clenched his fist to make the sand to crush Betelgeuse's arm, turning his bones into a fine powder. Blood tainted the sand and a few drops were falling to the ground. This left him without a hand and bleeding profusely. Now able to regrow his unseen hand, he commanded them to grab a tree outside of the cave in hopes of getting as far away from Naruto as possible. The hands obeyed him and pulled their owner away from the sand, but in doing so, he had to force his shoulder to detach from his now useless arm. He almost wished he hadn't done that. The pain was unbearable. But before he could get out of the cave, Naruto appeared at his right side, grabbed his other arm and pulled him toward him, dislocating his now only arm. He used his momentum to punch the right side of his face with ridiculous force, actually popping his right eyeball. Betelgeuse flew toward the same rock wall and crashed into it, leaving second imprint its surface. Naruto landed on the ground safely, and his sand game inside the gourd. You can see my unseen hand. Impossible. 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 Betelgeuse yelled with rage and no small amount of agonizing pain as he used unseen hand once again. However, this time he combined them into two big hands. Die. Die. Just die. Naruto's eyes were sharp as he followed his every movement, and assumed a relaxed stance. The fists were quickly closing in, and at the last second, he used a technique a certain slug Sannin was well known for. He threw his fists to meet the giant ones and at the last second used chakra to power up his already powerful punches. This resulted in an explosive force, and the fists never stood a chance as he made contact, exploding them into particles of magic. The explosive force was enough to knock back the madman into the wall he seemed to love crashing into. That man could take a beating even if he seemed very fragile at first. Seeing him on the ground, Naruto opened his palm and created a Rasengan determined to end the fight once and for all. He charged towards Betelgeuse that had once again picked himself up and was sweating bullets as he saw the powerful yellow technique. You are Dona. Betelgeuse yelled as he quickly created a wall of earth to protect himself from him. But, he was shocked when Naruto appeared in front of him before the wall of the earth closed completely. Take this. Rasengan. The blonde shinobi yelled as he smashed Betelgeuse into his gut and twisted it hard to make a horrible friction mark into the man's gut. Then, the Rasengan expanded and exploded, sending Betelgeuse's ruined form deeper into the same wall. Naruto walked over to the earth wall and checked to see if Betelgeuse was dead. He found the body there, unmoving and not breathing. Maybe, it was a good idea to call Emilia now that the fight was over. He looked down at the ground and found the book on the ground that belonged Betelgeuse. He picked it up and opened it to read it. What's this language? He asked himself, but he kept it to read it later. Naruto opened the mirror Mattia to call Emilia and saw her face when she answered. He smiled at her when he found her relieved look. She was probably worried about him. The blonde shinobi was going to speak to her, but suddenly, he felt as if something slammed in his head. He dropped the mirror Mattia while it was still on. Naruto. Naruto. Are you there? Emilia yelled in the mirror Mattia, her concern palpable. Naruto fell to his knee down on the ground and held his head in pain. This feeling, he felt like he wanted to vomit. His senses began to go wild. Feeling for the foreign energy, he found it inside himself. It was the same energy that Archbishop had. Betelgeuse was trying to possess his body. Ah! My brain is trembling. He yelled, but that wasn't him who said those lines. However, Naruto's mental defenses were strong. I won't let you control me. I am Naruto Uzumaki. Teach him a lesson, you guys. Leave it to us, brat. Kurama said with an evil smile. What would his container do without him, really? He has that stupid arrogant face again. If he doesn't stop, his head will get too big. The seven-tailed Kabutomushi said with a shake of her head. The other tailed beasts just chuckled. Betelgeuse was trying to take control of the young man that had killed him. He was struggling but needed a new body now that the last one was no longer useful. He was in a white space that generally represented the mindscape of an average human being, and while the young man was significantly, it didn't make any difference to him. This body would belong to him. Suddenly he was transported to a sewer-like a place, the sudden change in scenery making him fall on his back. He looked around him in a frenzy, he now had no grip into the young man's mind, leaving him powerless. What's this place? What's this place dash? He found his voice caught in his throat when he looked at a giant human-like hand. Following the limb upwards he met the gazes of 9 gargantuan creatures that were looking down directly at him, the one in the center projecting so much hatred it was beginning to drown him. The beasts smiled evilly as they saw the human enter the dark place. Welcome to your nightmare. Shikaku was looking down at the stupid human with every intention of just swallowing him whole. Betelgeuse immediately cut the connection with the young man's mind, a very dangerous place he decided, and was forced to go back into his beaten-up body. Naruto got his senses back and found the injured Betelgeuse lying on the ground in front of him, alive again. Nice try, but you won't able to get in my mind again. He said. This cannot be. This cannot be. Betelgeuse yelled with rage as he used unseen hand once again and let it take over his whole body. He was desperate. Naruto jumped back from Betelgeuse and watched him transform into what he assumed was his true form. It was an abomination. His whole body was that of a huge bug-like creature that was surrounded with unseen hand magic. In that case, it was the time Naruto used a more destructive jutsu against that monster. He opened his hand and created a Rasengan, but he flooded it with wind nature chakra. 4 blades were created around the central Rasengan core, giving it the appearance of a Fuma shuriken. It also gives off a loud screeching noise. Who are you? Why have you attacked us as we worked so diligently for our plans? What are you? Just what are you? Betelgeuse demanded in a different voice as he charged towards Naruto. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, a shinobi and the friend of a half-elf, Emilia. Naruto said as he adopted a pitching stance and aimed at Betelgeuse. Futon, Rasen Shuriken, Wind Style, Rasen Shuriken. He threw the Rasen Shuriken at Betelgeuse and it directly hit him, pushing him back away from him. The Rasen Shuriken detonated, producing a vortex of wind in the immediate area. Naruto had to shield himself from the blast. He heard Betelgeuse's painful screams while he's getting sliced by countless microscopic wind blades. This was the end for Betelgeuse, he couldn't escape from the Rasen Shuriken. Naruto, please stay alive. Emilia said as she ran in the forest to look for Naruto after she lost connection with him. She got very worried when that happened, so she told Rem to stay at the mansion and ran after Naruto. She saw what happened to him on the mirror Mattia because it was still on. He dropped the mirror Mattia and she heard this. His voice was the same, but it wasn't from the Naruto she knew. His words were different, it wasn't like him to say things with such insanity. That couldn't be. Did someone actually possess Naruto? Emilia shook her head and chose not to believe in that. She knew that he wouldn't give up that easily, he would win. Lia, calm down. We all know that Naruto won't dash. I can't. Emilia yelled, wanting to believe Puck but being unable to stop until she sees Naruto. She needed to see that the worst hadn't happened. He promised me. I promise I will make you happy for me and for Puck. The half-elf remembered his promise, that he'll make her happy. He wanted her to be happy and have a good life for him, for Puck and more importantly, for herself. She doesn't want him to forget that promise and leave her behind. She didn't want to be alone, not again. Her heart was beating so fast. Emilia doesn't understand why her heartbeat does that. Her heart was beating for Naruto because she had a special feelings, but she didn't know which ones. This feeling was something new, she didn't know if it was worry from him possibly leaving her, or something else, perhaps a special kind of joy. Lia, you've changed. Puck thought as he looked at his daughter, Emilia. His daughter has become so strong since Naruto crashed into her life, stronger than ever before. Stronger than, dare he say, even Emilia thought was possible. That boy knew almost everything about her and understood her and her feelings. It was natural considering their very similar upbringing. Puck started to like Naruto because of the way he treats her and teaches Lia to stand up for herself. Maybe, no, only the future could tell if he was the one. Puck, what's this feeling? Puck looked at Lia as he saw her being pushed by a blast. The spirit creature flew out and hanged on Lia's shoulder as he started to create ice wall in front of them for protection. They stayed behind their shield until the blast was finally over. That blast was strong and almost made Emilia experience flying, but luckily Puck helped her using the ice wall to protect her. What was that strong blast? Where did it come from? Emilia asked. I don't know, but it came from that direction. Puck pointed ahead of them as he sensed incredible mana release. That mana explosion was too powerful. I've never seen this before. A few seconds later, the blast has stopped and the two looked out from the ice wall. Emilia and Puck nodded at each other as they continued to try and find Naruto. They got out of the tree line and went where the signature was, and for sure where Naruto was, but they found a massive hole on the ground. Who did this? Do you know, Puck? Emilia asked. I've never seen this in my life. Puck said as he looked at the size of the hole. The size was freaking massive, his true form could totally fit there with no problems. Emilia looked around to find Naruto, but he was nowhere to be seen. She had a worried expression on her face, already fearing the worst. She shook her head, she had to think positively. She knows he's here somewhere. Emilia? The half-elf heard a familiar voice behind her, she turned to see the person who called her name. Purple eyes met yellow ones. Looking at the blonde spiky hair and whisker marks, it was revealed to indeed be Naruto. He looked a little different, mainly the eyes and his rectangular pupils. Emilia, repeated Naruto concerned, she just stood there looking at him as if seeing something strange, but he was worried for nothing as she flung herself into his arms. He kept his balance from the surprise attack and looked down at her. Emilia, what's wrong? I was so worried about you. I am sorry for disobeying your order, but I couldn't help it when I saw you in trouble. Emilia cried in his arms. I'm okay, Emilia. He replied as he hugged her back, assuring her he was there for her. Then, he saw Puck, who flew toward him. Hey, Puck. Any news? The cultists are dead. He answered him, noticing the toad eyes. Your eyes. What happened to them, and since when do you use makeup? He also noticed the orange rings in his eyes. Sennin mode, it's basically a power boost using the energy that the world has to offer. Naruto said as he looked at the massive hole. Yeah, about that massive explosion. It was me who did that. I told you guys to stay away from me because it could get crazy like this. And I don't use makeup, Databeo. It's an effect of natural energy. I'm sorry. But that's pretty impressive, it has to be a powerful mode if it gives you this much power. After a few minutes, Emilia pulled away from Naruto and wiped her tears with a hand. Without thinking, she started to check him to see if he had any injuries. Are you okay? Are you hurt? She asked. I'm fine, Emilia. Naruto said with an amused smile. Now that this is all over, we should pack up and leave the mansion, at least until we are certain it's safe. Emilia nodded to him, and began to walk back to the mansion, but she stopped as she turned to Naruto, who looked in a different direction. Naruto? She asked as the blonde shinobi turned to her. It's nothing. He replied as he walked to Emilia. Naruto opened his eyes slowly, hearing loud noises and feeling the soothing motions of the carriage they were in. His body was heavy with fatigue, feeling unfamiliar weights on his body. He looked at two girls sleeping on him. Rem slept on his lap, holding his right hand with both hands, and she seemed to be having a good dream. Emilia rested her head on his shoulder, holding his left hand. The two of them were exhausted after they fought the witch cult and the road was long, so of course they would fall asleep in a second. Uzumaki-san, are you awake? Naruto looked at the person who called him. He was the rider of the carriage that was sent to pick them up. His hair is gray. He wore a green uniform with a cloak and hat with a feather. What is it, Otto? I would like to thank you for giving me a payment, but I didn't expect to see the witch cult. Otto said, sounding scared. Don't worry about them. We have taken care of all of them, they won't be after us. He replied as he closed his eyes for seconds and looked at Otto in curiosity. Tell me about yourself, Otto. I'm just a merchant, and an unlucky person. I'm not very good at making the oils I sell. Otto said as his facial expression changed into a happy one. But, thank you for buying all of them. Yeah, about the oils, Naruto was the one who bought them, so he could burn the corpses of the witch cultists with fire. Those oils sure were flammable. Just to be sure that they wouldn't come back from the dead or be resurrected by their witch with magic, or some mumbo-jumbo the bad guys sometimes had. After that, Naruto and his friends packed all of their stuff. Then, they rode with Otto and his carriage. Sadly, Beatrice wasn't allowed to leave the mansion because of her contract. Naruto begged her to go with them for her safety, but she refused his offer. However, he made a promise to her that he'll come back for her. Maybe, he could find a way to set Beatrice free. Uzumaki-san, we're almost there. Otto said. Naruto nodded to him and began to wake the two up. Emilia. Remington. He said gently as he shook both of them. The blue-haired maid stirred first, her blue eyes slowly opening. She rubbed her eyes to gain focus. Naruto-kun. She stuttered. How was your sleep? He asked with a smile. Rem nodded to him with a smile and stretched out her arms as she got up from his lap. She let out a yawn and looked out of the carriage. While she was looking out, it was Emilia's turn to wake up. Naruto didn't want to ruin her sleep because she seemed to be having a good dream by looking at her face. But, he had to wake her up before they arrived at the capital. Naruto shook the half-elfin gently until she started to stir as her eyes opened slowly. The half-elf got up from his shoulder and rubbed her eyes with her hands. She took her sweet time to regain her focus and her violet eyes completely opened. Her eyes met his azure, amused ones. Tired? Naruto asked. Still tired, but I'm trying. Emilia said as she stretched her body and let out a yawn. Where are we? We're in our way to the capital. Naruto was interrupted by the carriage as it stopped suddenly. Just at the right time, he grabbed Emilia and Rem in his arms before they fell. Otto. What the hell? Why did you stop? Sorry, Uzumaki-san. Why you three should come out. He said. Why would they have to get out of the carriage? Emilia and Rem nodded to Naruto as he nodded back before getting out of the carriage. They got out, and checked over the gate as they walked past their carriage. They were surprised when they found the villagers from Erlem village. The people of Erlem village? Emilia was surprised. They waited for our return. Rem said. Naruto-niken. Naruto looked at Petra who called him, and received a hug from her as her arms wrapped around his waist. He heard her sobbing as her face looked up at him. Hey, Petra. He said with a smile before he got a group hug by the children. Naruto-niken. You came back. Luka said. The blonde shinobi couldn't help but let out a laugh and smiled at them. Hey. You guys are heavy. He said between laughs as he saw Mild walks in front of the people to meet him and the other two. Emilia-chan. Rem-san. Naruto-kun. She said as she started to bow to them. Thank you for saving us. You're welcome. I'm glad you're all safe. Emilia said with a smile, feeling happy to be reunited with the people that so graciously accepted her. It has been several hours ever since they returned to the capital after fighting against the witch cult. Naruto destroyed Betelgeuse Romani Conti with his Raisin Shuriken, and their little cults are no longer bother Emilia. One half of villagers had to stay in the capital because the village in the mansion's territory wasn't safe anymore. Who knew what the witch cult would do, while they got rid of a lot of members? They were pretty sure they were more, and remaining in a position where they could easily get ambushed and attacked again wouldn't be in their best interest. Living in fear isn't living at all, or so they said. The other half of villagers should have arrived at the sanctuary already, which was the safest road to travel. Ram had to go with them, in case the witch cult would attack them. Hopefully, Roswell will be able to protect the people, and since he wasn't in the mansion, their manpower was reduced, even if it was by a little margin. Hopefully, the villagers could be reunited with their friends and family little by little, but waiting was their best move, for now. Naruto was starting to hate the clown guy for abandoning his place and leaving the village behind. Somehow Roswell knew the witch cult was coming for the village. Him leaving even though he knew of the threat, these people posed from Rem and Ram were just so out of the blue and too much of a coincidence. The witch cult's goal was to capture Emilia and bring her to a ritual, so Satella can possess her and be reborn into this world, killing Emilia, or so he thought. Naruto clenched his fists. He wouldn't let them take Emilia away from him, from the people who loved her just because of who she was, so he promised. It seemed his quest to ensure a great future for this world was becoming more and more complex the more people he knew and the situations that arose. Naruto-kun. He heard a voice, and looked at Rem, who had a worried face. Yes? He asked a little more harsh than he would have liked. It seemed this was taking a toll on his emotional state. Are you okay? You were spaced out for a minute, Anne. Rem said as she put her hand on his cheek to comfort him. You looked angry. She stared at his red demonic eyes that were filled with anger. The look on his face would be terrifying and demonic to anyone, but not to Remington. She wasn't afraid of Naruto, even though he told them the truth about himself and a little about the true reach of his powers, she was still not afraid of him. The truth is she knew everything about him. She listened to the conversation between Naruto and Emilia, not on purpose, of course. In any seconds now, Naruto realized he unwillingly pulled Kurama's chakra and made his face look more feral. Sorry, Rem. I didn't mean to scare you. He panicked, deactivating Kurama's chakra as his demonic features turned back normal. That was a stupid thing to do in front of her. He forgot that his and Kurama's bond was too strong, so it automatically made him draw his chakra when feeling negative emotions. It's okay. Rem shook her head as she smiled at him and still held on his cheek. I'm not scared of you. I understand that you have too many things going through your head. Helping this world could be a thought stressing to anyone. So, I take it you heard me talking with Emilia? Yes, Naruto-kun. I heard everything about you and your life. The blue-haired maid said with an apologetic smile as she looked down. I'm sorry for listening to your story without asking you. That's alright, Remington. I guess you deserve to know the truth about me, so I don't mind Databeo. Hearing his catchphrase, Rem let out a giggle. She loves when he says that. It seemed like his trademark phrase. He was such a goofball. Naruto-kun. Please tell me what happened. Huh? Naruto wondered. You were angry before and I have a feeling that you have something in your mind. If you can tell me, please do. I swear I'll do my best to help you. Rem said. That one was Naruto's fault for making such an angry face at the witch cult and at Roswell. He wasn't going to tell her, but lying isn't an option either. He could 100% trust Emilia, Rem, Beatrice, and the others. His reluctance to tell Rem is because of her loyalty towards Roswell, a being he didn't exactly trust. Rem and Ram have been with him for a long time after their village got destroyed by the witch cult. They're very respectful and loyal to Roswell, and this loyalty could be a problem in the future since they owe him a great deal. Yeah, you're right, I have too many things in my head. Naruto said as he scratched the back of his head lightly. I trust you, but I won't tell you, not yet. I want to tell everyone once we are reunited. Of course, Naruto-kun. Rem said. If you're not from here, then why? Why, what? Then, why are you here? Naruto crossed his arms with a thoughtful look on his face, the one question he didn't have an answer to. I don't know. Maybe, I'm needed here to save your world and change the way it's headed. He said, looking at Rem who had nervous look on her face. What is it, Naruto-kun? When you stare with such dramatic eyes, it makes me uncomfortable. She said as her face glowed a pink hue. Perhaps I already am changing things, I don't remember you being this lively. The blonde man said as he poked her nose with his finger, surprising her. Your smile. Your laugh. I'd like to think this is little details I'm changing. Thank you. Rem smiled as she did the same to him, poking his nose. To me, you're too silly, Databeo. No copying, that is my word. Naruto said, pouting and looking away with a huff. Then after a few seconds, Naruto and Rem burst out their laugh together at the ridiculous situation they were both experimenting. Why are we laughing? I don't know. You made me laugh. Rem stopped laughing, she wiped away a tear. Suddenly Rem's demeanor took a turn. Alright then, let's head back. Naruto paused as his sleeve was grabbed by a hand. He turned to her, and found a sad look on her face. Rem, what's wrong? The different and sudden change in feelings he was getting from her was actually worrying. No one just jumped from joy to sadness so suddenly. So, after you save this world, that means you're going back to your home? She asked. Shit, that question struck his heart like a lightning. It wasn't so simple to answer her because there was no guarantee that he could come back if he went back home, or if he could go back at all. There was no way around this possibility. Worst case scenario, he went home and couldn't go back. Best case scenario, Sasuke could help him travel between both worlds. Naruto doesn't know how to say this to Rem, but he'll have to be honest with her. She deserved to know, at least. He opened his mouth to speak, but got interrupted by a hug as the arms wrapped around his waist. He looked down at Rem, and heard her crying. I can't. It hurts too much. I can't accept it. When you leave this world, I'll never see you again. I never want that day to come. Her voice filled with sadness and pain. Looking down, Naruto knew that telling Rem the truth would hurt her. Rem knew that he will leave her world and go back to his homeland. Rem, Never. I refuse to accept it. Rem yelled as she buried her face into his chest. I love it when you stroke my hair. It feels like we understand each other through this silly things and jokes. I really love your voice and your eyes. My heart feels warmer every time I hear you say something. Rem. Naruto said softly as he lifted her chin up with a finger to look up at him. Her face was red and completely covered with tears. Looking at her face like that, it really felt worse than lightning to his heart. You saved me in that dark forest when I lost myself and only thought of raging around. She said, holding his cheek with a hand, and looked at him. You didn't run away from me and risked your life to protect me from the demon beasts. You stopped my rage. You fought, even though I thought you had no chance of winning. You came back to me alive. You said the words that I wanted to hear at the right time. You sweetly melted my frozen heart. You made a promise to me. I don't want you to leave. Right, Naruto made a promise to her that they can lean on each other, to laugh and smile together. Also, he promised Emilia that he would never leave her side. Rem, look at me. The blue-haired maid looked at Naruto with her teary face as his thumb wiped her tears. You have to understand that I don't belong here. I belong in my world. It's possible that they'll force me to go back, but... Naruto said as he pulled her into a hug. I'll find a way to get here if it's possible. I won't give up until I find a way to get back here. You're the one who made me realize how this world goes. Honestly, I want to stay here. I want to explore more of this world with you and everyone else. The blonde shinobi stared at her eyes, noticing her cheeks have turned red, and felt his hand warming. That facial expression and the heat from her cheeks. Is she? Naruto-kun, I love you. I love you because you're my hero. Rem confessed her feelings for Naruto. The blonde was speechless with his eyes widened in shock. She confessed her feeling to him. Rem. He swallowed with a blush, struggling with how to respond the maid's feelings, before a finger was placed on his lip. I know, Naruto-kun, you have feelings for Emilia-sama. I watched you both. Rem smiled, closing her eyes as she placed her hands on the heart. You don't have feelings for me, but I understand why you two are perfect. You and Emilia-sama are ones and the same concerning your similar pasts, but you have been through much more pain and suffering than Emilia. Since you arrived here in my world, you have helped Emilia and me so much. Rem, is this what you want? Naruto asked, feeling bad for the blue-haired maid. His feelings were a mess in this moment because of the simple confession. Yes, this is what I want. Rem said with a bitter smile as she looked at the blonde. But, promise me I'll still be a part of your life. Can you entertain this selfish woman's desire, just this once? You're damn right He was going to continue the sentence, but his voice got dropped. His eyes widened in shock when a soft and warm feeling met in his lip. His stomach took a turn and for some reason felt warm and tingly. His eyes were still opened. Rem kissed him on the lips. She was tipping her toes to reach his height. She didn't tell him anything before kissing him. She just kissed him. After a few seconds, Rem and Naruto pulled away from each other. Their cheeks were red after the kiss, both enjoyed the sensation of their lips together, feeling strangely right. Just this once, Naruto-kun. She said, sounding remorseful but strangely calm, almost comforted. I shall take that as a promise. You cannot go back on your word now. Naruto's blush was no longer on his cheeks. He smiled at Rem, not knowing what more to do than to try and cheer her up. It'll be fine, Remington. I'll find a way to take care of everything. I'm someone who never breaks a promise. He said, his eyes looking at the maid with great care and warmth. Naruto-kun. Rem said softly as her tears kept flowing more. Thank you. Then, Naruto and Rem leaned in closer, their foreheads were now touching. Closing their eyes, both smiled at the same time. They found happiness in their life and created a new memory never forget. Sorry for taking so long, Emilia. Naruto said, walking with Emilia in the street. The silver-haired girl had to wear her cloak because the crowd still didn't like her appearance. This wasn't Earlham Village. After Naruto and Rem returned from a long break, Rem stayed behind in the hotel to rest. Right after that, Emilia told Naruto to go with her to the city because she planned to buy something. Of course he said yes. Right now, they're in the street with stores everywhere, if one could see them because it was filled with crowds. This is why Emilia brought a cloak to cover her appearance from humans. It's fine. It's fine. The half-elf said, waving her hand. She grabbed something in her pocket and took it out to show it to Naruto. Look at this, Naruto. What do you think? Naruto looked at the paper with Japanese kanji written in ink. It wasn't perfect, but one could easily understand their meaning. Wow, you're getting better at this. He was amazed at the progress she was making in his language. Emilia smiled at him. Yes, it was because of your book. I used it to learn the words from there, she said. Naruto put his hands on the back of his head, and looked at Emilia. So, why are we here for? He asked. Do you remember the girl we helped in our first meet? Emilia asked as she remembered the little girl lost in the street. The blonde shinobi nodded and remembered the lost girl. That was a while back. They found her and brought her back to her parents. Before she and her mom left, her mom gave Naruto and Emilia a location where they could buy fruits, her store's location. Wow, I almost forgot about that, Naruto said with a thoughtful look on his face as he scratched his cheek lightly with a finger. He heard a giggle from Emilia which made him a little mad. Why are you laughing at me? I thought you knew everyone, but it seems you forgot her all the way back from the first day we met, Emilia said, covering her mouth to resist her giggles. Puck was right about you. You may be a shinobi, but you have a short memory. What? I don't have a short memory, but more importantly, I can't believe you agree with him. Emilia, that hurts my feelings, Naruto yelled as the silver-haired girl started to laugh at him now. He narrowed his eyes in slight embarrassment, already planning his revenge. An idea came to mind and he poked her on her side in retaliation and she let out a squeal. Emilia started to poke back to him on his side with a finger for poking her, and gave him another one, but she let out a laugh when Naruto poked her several times. They narrowed their eyes and entered ridiculous stances, not caring for the people watching them. The scene was weird because their pokes were now a martial art of its own, the pokes were blurs and they seemed to be in a serious match. The blonde shinobi grinned softly, but quickly reacted and grabbed her waist before she accidentally ran into some random people. He sighed with relief until he took a strong poke in his ribs. The half-elf had the gall to giggle at him when he glared at her. Gotcha, she said with a smile. Wow, I saved your life, and now you poke me. Maybe, I should have dropped you, Naruto said, looking away as if looking at that very scenario. How mean of you, Emilia said in a childish way as she glared at him with cute pout while poking her tongue out. Her facial expression changed into a happy one as she smiled at him. But, thank you, Naruto smiled at her back as he and Emilia continued on the street. Before continuing, a hand caught his hand which got his attention. He turned to look at the half-elf who had a blush on her face. Emilia? The blonde shinobi asked. See, can I hold your hand again? Emilia asked as her hand gripped his hand, and she looked at him. I felt comfortable holding your hand, Naruto. I feel safe with you, so, can we hold hands again? Naruto couldn't help but blush when he looked at her face. Her face was that of an angel. That thought made his heart skip a beat. Alright, he accepted as he held her hand. Finally, they continued to walk on the street and found the fruit shop. The walk wasn't long when Naruto and Emilia stopped by a small shop with fruits. They met the seller who had a muscular body. His hair is green with a hairband. He wore a black vest, and 2 bracelets lined his wrists. Are you Kataman Rish? Naruto asked. Huh? How do you know my name? Kataman asked. Well, you see, it was your wife who gave us your name and your location. We're here to buy your fruit, Emilia said as she looked over the fresh fruits while Naruto kept looking at the seller, that seemed to be analyzing them. The man's eyes light up in recognition. My wife told you. Oh, I remember. She told me about you too because you found my daughter, Kataman said with a smile. As a reward for finding my daughter, you can get it for free, but just this once. Oh no. We can't do that to you. It's alright. I really appreciate your help, so please take them for free. You earned it. Naruto and Emilia looked at each other with smiles when they learned they could get their fruits for free. A couple of minutes later, Naruto had a bag of red apples in his arm. Emilia thanked the seller for giving them free fruit. They were going to head back, but they saw a crowd looking at the board. Oh. If you're curious what's going on, the royal elections started. You too can look at the board, but I highly look at the top first, Kataman said as he pointed at the board with 2 familiar pictures. The board got Naruto interested as he walked toward the crowd and looked over them. His eyes found 2 pictures of 2 candidates on the top one. The first picture is Crush. The second picture is Anastasia. Taking a good guess, the nobilities must have voted for them. The other 3 candidates are on the bottom, underneath the top 2. Naruto saw Emilia's picture is on the second row next to Priscilla. He sighed in disappointment at the nobilities for judging Emilia by her appearance. It wasn't good for him when he heard the crowd criticizing Emilia. Naruto, Emilia said, holding his hand as she pulled him away from the board before he became more uncomfortable. With luck, she managed to make him look at her. Let's go. Naruto sighed calmly, his anger cooling down as he held her hand back. Alright, he said as they left the market and ignored the board. After several minutes, they're on halfway to the hotel. Emilia kept looking at Naruto because she felt his anger. She finally understands why he went so far for her, that day. I don't want you to go through that life, like me. People hated me and treated me like a demon because I have the Kyuubi. Emilia gripped Naruto's hand and laid her head on his arm. Naruto, she said softly. Yeah? He asked. I understand why you went so far for me, life didn't give us a good hand. To tell you the truth, I never understood people's feelings and emotions. She said as she and Naruto stopped on the sidewalk. She sees his azure eyes staring at her purple eyes. But, when you told me about your life and your story, I finally understood why people get hurt by their feelings. They lost their loved ones who died in a war to protect their family. You said family to Ram because he and felt our family, they've been watching each other backs way too long to not be considered family. You were right. Ram and felt our family because they cared about each other. Family is special and important because it can give you love. Naruto said as he pointed at her chest with a finger. Look at parents. Parents care about you because they love you, they sacrifice everything for you and more. They raise people because they love them, not because they have to. About your parents, Naruto. I'm still sorry about you going through so much pain and suffering without them. Emilia said as she remembered his parents died by sacrificing their lives for him, she at least had her aunt. You have gone through an experience so much like mine. I have experienced this kind of life because of my looks. People hate me, but I understand why they hate me. The reason why the witch cult targets me is because I am a half-elf that looks exactly like Dash. The bag was dropped on the ground and Emilia was cut off from her last word by a hand that grabbed her and pulled her to hug. She let out a gasp and looked it up to Naruto, who embraced her with 2 arms. His eyes were closed, but she can tell his facial expression was worried and sad. Maybe saying the name, Satella, to herself is off limit for him. When Naruto embraced her, she felt nice and warm feelings from him. Her face glowing a red hue. Don't ever say that word again. Never again. Naruto said softly. You have nothing to do with the witch cult and nothing to do with that witch, to hell with anyone that tells you otherwise. You're Emilia, you're a strong girl who never gives up, and you're one of the kindest people I know. Most importantly, you're my friend. Emilia's eyes widened in shock and her tears started to fall down her face. She accepted his embrace fully and her head was buried into his chest. To be honest, she had never received a hug from anyone. This is the first time that someone else other than Puck hugged her. Naruto. Yes? Would you do me the honor of being my knight? Emilia asked with a smile as she wiped her tears. Naruto blinked his eyes and pulled away from her a bit with a surprised expression. His expression turned into a gentle one before he grinned as he grabbed Emilia around her waist, picking her up and spinning her around. Kaya. Emilia let out a cute scream, holding on to him. Yes. I would love to be your knight. Naruto nearly shouted as he continued to spin. And Naruto, can you put me down? She asked as the blonde shinobi came to a slow stop and placed her down with a smile. Looking at his smile, she was happy to see him smiling again. The silver-haired girl realized his arms were still wrapped around her waist. She blushed lightly at his action before backing up slowly out of his arms. Naruto, I'm happy you accepted to be my knight, but there's more I want to say. She said with a blush, preparing to confess her feeling to him. According to a book that detailed the feelings a maiden feels when in love, she considered seriously if what she felt for Naruto was love. But it was better to give a shot rather than cry in remorse, or so they say. Sure, what is it? Naruto asked. I dash. Oh my. What do we have here, Naya? Naruto and Emilia heard a familiar voice as they turned to meet the person. They found a cute cat female, not exactly the person Naruto wanted to see again, because he triggered his Haku-related PTSD, he couldn't trust appearances anymore. Hello Naya. I'm glad you're all safe. Crush said with relief, drinking alcohol in front of Naruto and Emilia. After Ferris found them, he brought them to Crush's house to visit her. Naruto and Emilia had explained to Crush everything about the witch cult attack. Yes, we were attacked by the witch cult. We had to evacuate everyone from there, but we split them up. Ram is there with them and Roswell is there too. The others are here to live in the capital in the meantime. Emilia said. A person named Betelgeuse Romanicanti. He's a sloth, or something like that. Naruto said dismissively. Crush placed the cup down as she looked at the blonde man. Yes, the witch cult's 6 cardinals, titled as the deadly sins. Each of them bears the name of a deadly sin from the 6 witches who aren't the witch of envy. Sloth, greed, gluttony, lust, wrath, and pride. These are the names of the deadly sins. She said as her expression turned into an interested one. I'm impressed that you defeated Betelgeuse of Sloth. He was nothing special, but he was a danger, so I had to put him down. He said, crossing his arms as he has gotten serious about 6 cardinals of sin. Betelgeuse died by the Raisin Shuriken, so that meant that there's now only 5 cardinals of sin left. Their goal is to restore or break the seal of the Witch of Envy. According to the story, she had been sealed for the last 400 years. The sage, the dragon, and the sword saint were the ones who sealed Satella. Breaking the seal was said to be impossible, but was it? There's no way the 5 cardinals of sins can break the seal, or can they? What would they do now that a cardinal was dead? What type of power would they need to break the seal, if it was possible at all? Why did Satella kill the other 6 witches? Why did she try to destroy the world? Satella, the witch cult, the sins, the witches, all of them were surrounded by questions that lacked an answer. For the first time, he was thinking about her. His heart ached a bit because he started to realize something. I love you. I'm sorry. Her voice sounded so familiar to Naruto. He doesn't know why he thinks that, but her voice sounded familiar to him. It was filled with sadness and suffering. It was like they knew each other from before this whole mess. Naruto. Naruto. Naruto felt someone shake him and he turned to see Emilia. Huh? What's up, Emilia? He asked. You were spacing out. Emilia said, concerned as she stared at his face. Naruto had that same expression from yesterday while heading back to the mansion. Sorry for spacing. Naruto replied as he looked at Crush. Yeah, Betelgeuse is definitely dead. That is one down. The 5 cardinals of sin to go, am I correct? Yes, you are correct, but I want to warn you about them. They killed so many people in the past and they were strong too, so do not hold back. She warned. Yeah, I'll keep that in my mind. Naruto said as he crossed his arms. You know, I just realized that all the 5 candidates are always busy, right? In response to a certain occurrence, my family is currently gathering people and objects. Plus, since word of the royal selection spread, I've received proposals every day. I'm sure the other candidates have as well. Hey. Emilia said with a blush as the blonde shinobi was about to choke when he took water in a glass. He lightly hit his chest, and then looked at Emilia and Crush. P proposals. You mean marriage? He shocked. I'm already 20. It wouldn't be weird for me to be engaged to someone. It could also work in my favor depending on who it is. Crush said with a sly smile, looking at Naruto as she decided to mess with Emilia. Emilia didn't tell you that she received some proposals as well? Hey. The silver-haired girl yelled in embarrassment, trying in vain to stop her from playing around with her and Naruto. What? Naruto yelled as he looked at Emilia with an unreadable expression on his face. Emilia, is this true? Wait, and Naruto dash. Crush let a giggle escape her mouth at the two who now have the red-colored face and a totally serious one. Forgive me, Emilia and Naruto, I simply couldn't resist. Candidates are forbidden to become engaged during the royal election to prevent any unneeded faction wars. I was going to tell you this. Emilia said nervously with a relieved smile. Oh. Naruto said, starting to calm down as he sat down back on a chair. Emilia, you have a good knight on your side. I admit that. Crush said with a smile as she looked at the silver-haired girl who had a blush. Anyways, what will you do tomorrow? Pretty easy. We'll go back to the mansion, and then head to the sanctuary. Naruto said. Before you go there, the path you took when you first came is currently closed off. You'll have to take a detour. Crush said. Huh? Why? What's going on there? He asked. There's currently mist on that path. If you don't know about the mist is created by the Hakugi. Crush said. Oh. Naruto understood as he remembered back in the forest when he was going back to the mansion with Emilia. He was in Sennin mode and found a large mana source that caught his attention. Why not just fight the Hakugi? I know that's a stupid question, but I understand what you're trying to say, but it isn't that simple. Hakugi is one of the 3 great demon beasts. However, I'm already prepared for that. Crush said as she looked at Emilia. Emilia, Naruto Uzumaki has defeated Betelgeuse Romanicanti. What do you want from him? Emilia wondered. I'm going to need your assistance. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.